I think the economy is certainly looking quite strong. If you look at the power consumption, if you look at the GST collections, the underlying economy seems to be doing quite well. Wage inflation is quite good, which of course poses some challenges for the companies, but I think it's a very good indicator for the economy. I think net the economic outlook is good. Consumption in India grows steadily. I think with the wage inflation that we are experiencing, I think that should continue to grow. The year of COVID saw a sharp resurgence in profitability of almost every manufacturing sector, right from paper, sugar, textiles, chemicals, metals. I mean, you name it, virtually every single sector has seen sharp improvement in profitability. Corporate leverage is quite low. So I feel reasonably confident in saying that private industrial capex, which has been missing for a very long time, should come back pretty strongly. And the indicators or the commentary from the capital goods engineering companies is very encouraging. In response to COVID, governments across the world and in India have brought about a sharp focus on infrastructure spending to support the adverse impact of COVID. And in India, we are seeing considerable progress, acceleration in infra spends across different sectors, whether it is roads or renewable power or railways, etc. I think private capex is likely to do well. Public capex, infra capex is doing quite well. Exports are doing quite well after a while. And I think there, the opportunity is actually probably quite big, and it goes much beyond the immediate term. So as we all know, what India is to software services, China has been to manufacturing. China dominates the world manufacturing, and they are a factory to the world. What happened in COVID because of the lockdown situation? The supply chain there was disrupted, and this caused considerable pain to their customers. Also, over the last few years, China's cost competitiveness has been reducing. China's per capita income is now almost 5x of India. So India has gained competitiveness in terms of costs over China. And this disruption in supply chain caused due to COVID has highlighted the risk of over dependence on a single country supply chain. Therefore, there is a keen desire amongst their customers to de-risk and to develop alternate sources of supply. This is where India comes in. Amongst all other Asian countries, India offers large scale. It has the benefit of a very large domestic economy, which gives you economies of scale for whatever you make. Our costs are quite competitive. We have ample skilled manpower, and we have a government that is extremely supportive. This PLI scheme, the production linked incentive scheme that we have spoken about in the past also, I think is likely to be quite successful in helping us improve our manufacturing share. It should help us make for India and also help us make for the export market. Manufacturing is such a big opportunity that if we manage to do better than what we have done in the past, it has the potential to improve India's GDP growth rates, economic growth rates between 1 to 2% per annum for many, many years. And this is what has happened to China over last 2 decades. And I think if we can perform even in a far more moderate way compared to what they have done, I think given the smaller base of our economy, it should still impact us significantly in terms of growth rates. So net, I think the outlook for the economy post-COVID on multiple fronts, consumption, private capex, infra capex, exports, appears to be quite good. And this is why I feel that the outlook for India is better than it was pre-COVID. In this period, the government has also carried out some important reforms, and the most important reform that I would like to highlight is apart from the PLI scheme, which I have already mentioned in passing, is the focus on strategic sales now going forward. In last several years, we have seen the government has done sales of or reduced stakes in PSUs through ETFs or OFS. I think going forward, the clear shift is towards strategic sales. I think this is extremely good step for the country. On one hand, it will give resources to the government. They can put it to either to reduce fiscal deficit or to spend on social sector or to spend more on defense, whatever, but it gives more resources to the government. On the other hand, it is also likely to bring in foreign exchange into the country in fairly large amounts, and this will help us improve our foreign exchange reserves, help us improve our balance of payments. I think equally importantly, it will make these companies hopefully better and far more competitive, and it will lead to wealth creation for all the shareholders. One strategic divestment of Air India has been completed, and this is a very historic step. And I think the road ahead we should make faster progress on this. And DIPAM secretary has said that in the current year, they hope to conclude few more transactions. Over last year or so, many of us were not willing to believe that this will happen because things tend to get delayed in India. And we have been optimistic on this space, and it is great to see the first important divestment taking place. And very interestingly, there was no opposition either in the media or otherwise from any corner. So I think the country has by and large accepted strategic divestment, and which should make progress even faster going forward. There are also reports, there is also hope that India should get included in the global bond index. As and when that happens, if and when that happens, I think again it will be a very important development, and it will should lead to lower interest rates in India for a while longer. I think that again is a very important development from an economic, political perspective. So I think net the outlook for India's economic growth appears to be quite promising. And what is also encouraging is that finally the profit cycle seems to be turning. For almost 3-4 years, the earnings at the end of the years used to be lower than the earnings estimates at the beginning of the year. And in many conversations, many interactions, people used to be very apprehensive when will earnings come. And economy was growing, but somehow, for some reason or the other, the Nifty earnings were not growing. And people like me used to give some reason or the other. This time, this sector has not done well. This time, this is what has happened. But net, the result was Nifty EPS growth was extremely weak. So it's heartening to see that Nifty EPS growth has come back very strongly. And I think current year and next 2 years put together, Nifty earnings should grow around 70 odd %. That is what is the consensus estimate. It's a very strong recovery in earnings that we are experiencing, and it is very broad based. So corporate banks, I think the corporate NPA cycle has ended. Earlier, I used to say it is on the verge of ending. Before that, we used to say it will end. But now I think you can say it has finally ended. Just a few hours back, State Bank has declared results, extremely good results. Almost all the large corporate banks' results have come. And I think it is safe to say the corporate NPA cycle in India has come to an end. And I think, in fact, SBI chairman just said 5 minutes back that they hope to deliver 15% ROE consistently sooner than later. I think the banks are a very large part of the indices of the markets. So this end of asset quality cycle is great news for banks, great news for Nifty EPS growth, and it is also good news for the economy in general. Manufacturing sector, I have mentioned to you already, has done extremely well for a variety of reasons. The exports are doing well, competition from China is reducing. So for a variety of reasons, commodity prices have gone up. I mean, paper companies, sugar companies, textile companies, chemical companies, across the board, metal companies, we have seen a strong resurgence in profit growth. Software, pharmaceuticals, and consumer sector (FMCG) were less impacted by COVID for very obvious reasons. In fact, due to COVID, there is a very urgent shift towards to enable businesses across the world to the new digital world, and that is leading to an acceleration in technology spends. So even the outlook for that sector is quite good. Capital spending outlook has clearly improved. Order backlogs are growing, order inflows, order pipelines are quite good, and some of the large EPC engineering companies have shared this optimism. So I think net, if you look at the outlook for profit growth, is one, it is quite robust. Banks that make one third of the index, outlook is good. Software, pharmaceutical, consumption, that again is 30-40% of the index, outlook is quite good. The automobile sector, which has been very hard hit due to COVID, the automobiles, airlines, retails, chains, and hotels, I think these have been impacted the most due to COVID. And as economy opens up, as life comes back to normalcy, I think these sectors should also recover sooner than later. There are some challenges being faced around the supply chain side, but while I don't know the details, it is too complex a issue. But I do feel strongly that over time these things tend to resolve themselves. So I don't think it should impact us for too long, at least to any meaningful. Coming to the markets, I think I don't know how many of you would recall or were there. We did a number of such webinars the initial days of COVID also, and our view was extremely positive on the markets. And we said, look, the impact of COVID, while very unfortunate for a number of families, is likely to be limited for the economy, at least in terms of time. Therefore, over time, life should come back to normalcy. And at that time, markets had fallen to below 50% market cap to GDP. And it was driven by those valuations that we were extremely optimistic on the markets. And our conviction is reflected in what we did in the Balance Advantage Fund. Our equity exposure reached nearly an all-time high, close to, I think it reached 80 to 84%. Some people were apprehensive. Many were saying, is this the right thing to do? So I'm happy, we are relieved that that call has worked out well, and that optimism, which was has been well rewarded. I think we have come a long way from those times, and equity markets have done actually better than even what we were expecting. I think the reason for the equity markets doing so well across the world is clearly the low cost of capital. Cost of capital was a reaction of the world governments, the banks, to fight the impact of COVID. And I think the impact of the low interest rates, high liquidity is what we are seeing in asset prices across the world. Where are Indian markets now? I think Indian markets are trading close to 100% market cap to GDP for calendar 22, fiscal 23, and roughly 90 odd percent for calendar 23, fiscal 24. I think calendar 23 is the right matrix or measure to focus on right now, because as we all know, this year, calendar year is coming to an end very soon, in about 6 months' time from today, when we are in the middle of the next year, the markets will clearly start focusing on calendar 23. When we look at calendar 23, I don't think we are going too far ahead. I think it's pretty reasonable to look at calendar 23. Based on that, in terms of market cap to GDP, in terms of PE multiples, markets are reasonably valued. I would not say they are cheap. I would not say they are very expensive, especially given the current low cost of capital. What that means is if one was to take a guess at the markets over the next few years, I think returns should be largely driven by earnings growth. And uh, it is and that makes us optimistic about the markets because as I discussed, as I mentioned a few moments back, the profit growth outlook for India is quite strong. I think there are reasons to remain optimistic on the markets about the market's ability to add value over fixed income returns over inflation. And as Ashok was saying, that when I started my career, index was 4,000 and today it is 60,000. And this has been a very persistent question. And why just 30 years? If you look at last 42 odd years of the Sensex since 1979, 100 rupees in the Sensex has become 60,000. And in this period of 40 odd years, there have been many periods of high interest rates, low interest rates, high inflation, low inflation, scams, scandals, wars, elections, slow economic growth, high economic growth, COVID, 9/11, Lehman, tapering, Brexit, Asian crisis. So when you look at all of this, you still see the index has become 600 times. So I think that is the beauty of a growing economy, of a country which has wonderful demographics, has progressive governments, is inherently strong by way of skilled manpower, low costs, access to natural resources, etc. So I think it was only due to COVID that the economy contracted for the first time in last 40 odd years. Otherwise, this economy has grown even in the most difficult periods. And it is a result of that growth, the strengths that the economy enjoys, that the Sensex has become 600 odd times. The CAGR, which is roughly in line with the nominal GDP growth. And I see no reason why that should change in the future, if at all. The outlook for economic growth is actually quite good. There is one more development in this COVID period, and that is the democratization of the equity markets. Pre-COVID, there were 3 crore demat accounts, and now there are 7 crore demat accounts. And every quarter, we are opening roughly a crore of demat accounts. So I think this is good news for the country, for the capital markets in aggregate, because it will lead to wider equity ownership of Indian companies by Indians. That is good. It will lead to hopefully some wealth creation, and I think it will also probably lead to stronger, more vibrant capital markets. I think direct investors have been enabled by uh, time. I mean, when you were working from home, there was time. People had more savings because expenses were low. And of course, digital adoption has gone up extremely sharply. And since this most of these investments have taken place in lower markets, the outcomes have been great. And I think it is right now that appears to be a virtuous cycle. Of course, this can lead to excesses in the long term, as we have seen on a number of occasions, whether it was 2000, 2008, or around those, or in 1992. But I mean, these are part and parcel of the markets. But currently, I don't think we are in those kind of times because the multiples are more reasonable, especially given the low interest rates. I would like to make one more final point, and there is a lot of focus on P multiples, and probably rightly so. I mean, people like me have talked about P multiples, market cap to GDP for a very long period. And one more thing which somehow has not hit home with as much force is that growth actually makes a much bigger difference to returns over long periods than PE multiples. In 1992, the PE multiples were the highest ever, 40 plus times. And if you invested even in those markets over a long period, equities have done quite well. They've significantly outperformed inflation and bank deposits, even after investing at 40 PE. If you invested around 2000, 2008, when PE multiples were around 23, 25 times, again, over time, these were uh, quite decent investment decisions, if not outstanding decisions. The point I'm trying to make is that growth makes a bigger difference to returns over long periods of time than PE multiples. And this is especially true for a economy like India, where nominal GDP is growing 12 to 14% a year. So what appears to be slightly expensive based on next year earnings, as you go to fiscal 24 in 6 months' time, you will suddenly find the PE multiples are down 15 odd percent and things are beginning to look more reasonable. I think and it is for this nature of equities, it is said that time in the markets is more important than timing demand. So many times we have seen high and low PE multiples, but over time, growth kind of overshadows that variation in PE.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.